Tonight on KGW News, the local teacher who found the key piece of evidence that fell from the sky.
This is the most exciting thing that's ever happened on the street, as far as I know.
As we get closer to answers on what went wrong.
We are going to provide what broke. We cannot tell you at this time how or why.
And we're hearing from the passenger aboard Alaska 1282 who helped comfort the teen who literally lost his shirt mid-flight.
Having your body pulled out, like his seatbelt saved him.
Plus, the loose parts that inspections have just turned up on other MAX 9s. And later, a blizzard headed for the Cascades. The urgent warning for travelers and when the snow could potentially hit the valley floor. Good evening, everyone. We have a lot to get to tonight, starting with the very latest on Alaska Airlines 1282. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm David Molko. We want to begin by running you through a few key updates here. First is the recovery of that door plug in the Cedar Mill area. It is the piece that closed off a deactivated emergency exit and the part that blew off mid-flight Friday night. Then this evening, investigators confirmed the 4 bolts that prevent that door plug from moving were no longer attached on either end. And they added it is not clear at this point whether they were ever there to begin with. Finally, both Alaska and United Airlines tonight confirming that inspections have found loose hardware related to this very part, the door plug, on other Boeing 737 MAX 9s, all currently grounded by the FAA. So let's get right to team coverage. Alma McCarty with the stories of the people impacted by the emergency, including one of the 171 passengers on board. But first to Catherine Cook with the very latest from the NTSB. Catherine.
David, investigators said they are grateful to the community for stepping up, especially the person who found the door plug in his backyard and contacted them. The NTSB went out and retrieved that door plug early this morning. Aerospace engineers with the NTSB say from what they can tell so far, the door plug slid upward off its hinges, 2 of them on each side, and blew out of the fuselage. Federal investigators are pleased that they know what happened, but admit they don't know how or why it happened.
We found that both guide tracks on the plug were fractured. We have not yet recovered the 4 bolts that restrain it from its vertical movement, and we have not yet determined if they existed there. That will be determined when we take the plug to our lab in Washington, D.C.
So that statement, the uncertainty of if the bolts were ever even there, and the fact that both Alaska and United Airlines are finding that some bolts weren't tightened in their own inspections of other Boeing MAX 9s raises more concerns. The NTSB's chair addressed those tonight.
Right now, we are focused on the evidence. The evidence tells a story. The components on this door plug tell a story. We have to follow the evidence and see where it takes us.
The NTSB also addressed concerns over decompression lights coming on in this plane and 3 of its other recent flights. They say those were unrelated to this event. The NTSB said this will be their last on-scene media briefing, but they'll continue to provide updates. Meanwhile, the door plug will now head to their lab in D.C. They say full results could take a year to 18 months. David.
Yes, so many moving parts and still tonight, so many questions. Thank you, Catherine. And while none of the 171 passengers on board were sitting in the window seat directly next to where that gaping hole suddenly opened up mid-flight, there were people in that aisle, including a teenager whose shirt was quite literally torn off his body. Alma McCarty caught up with another passenger who ended up sitting right next to the teen after those terrifying moments.
Yeah, David, Kelly Bartlett was sitting about 3 rows up from the blowout. She heard the initial boom, then the wind before oxygen masks dropped. And then almost as quick, a teenager jumped over her and into the middle seat.
But it scared everyone. It didn't matter where you were sitting on the plane. It was terrifying because it's not what you want to have happen on any flight that you're on.
Kelly Bartlett, one of more than 170 passengers on the Alaska Airlines flight bound for Ontario, California Friday evening.
It's not normal. It's not what you want to see on the airplane.
Says at first, she thought the hole in the side of the plane was a missing window.
It was way more than the window, and I just couldn't believe it. That's when I took a picture and I texted my husband. He couldn't believe it. This doesn't happen, right? Like, It was just crazy. It was like Jack said in his note, he said this was unbelievable.
Jack being the teen whose shirt was ripped off when the door plug blew out. He ended up sitting right next to Kelly.
And once he was safe and he had his mask on, we started communicating through the Notes app on my phone, just because we couldn't talk because of the wind and the masks. And we tried to figure out what was going on.
Kelly explained everyone remained calm as the plane descended, heading back to PDX. When they touched down amid cheers, she says Jack suggested a selfie to commemorate the unbelievable situation.
I felt like I say that I felt lucky, and everyone's like, that's not a lucky situation you were in, but it could have been so much worse.
On the ground this weekend,
I said, oh, you'd be really surprised to know what I have.
people living in the Cedar Mill area north of Beaverton discovered a number of objects that fell from that flight. From a headrest.
It's just odd. It's just odd. I'm glad it was just something soft, coming into my backyard versus the door.
To a cell phone.
Funny thing was, NTSB was already in the area, of course, but they had just found another phone on their own.
Bob Sauer, a physics teacher.
This is the most exciting thing that's ever happened on the street, as far as I know.
Found the door plug in one piece.
In my physics A class, we've just finished talking about impulse and momentum, so that comes up as well. The trees acted like an airbag and made for a longer stop and a lower force.
Every time the NTSB asks for help, every single time, the community pulls through.
With those crucial parts now returned to investigators, questions remain about the Boeing 737 MAX 9.
I'm very curious to find out what they determined the cause of it was.
I hope that we get answers on what went wrong and why. I hope they have a plan for the future.
Now, passengers on that flight got their ticket refunded plus $1,500. In speaking with Kelly today, she doesn't believe that's really enough given the amount of trauma people may have experienced Friday night. David?
I mean, your heart really goes out to the 177 passengers and crew on board that flight. Thank you, Alma. Tonight, we're also following updates on inspections of the Boeing 737 MAX 9 fleet. Alaska saying initial reports of that area in question, the door plugs indicate some loose hardware visible on some aircrafts. Today, we also heard from a former senior air safety investigator with the NTSB who says investigators will check Boeing build records and Alaska maintenance records. He says he wants to see how quickly the FAA, Airlines, and Boeing make changes.
They're going to be looking all the way back to the time this airplane was being built to see if there is a human error or a mechanical error or a materials error. Fortunately, we did not have any fatalities. If this airplane had been a lot higher, 35,000 feet, we'd be talking about a different story.
Cannot say that enough. United also found loose bolts around the door plug and what it called other installation issues that were inspected since this incident. United says those bolts needed additional tightening. In the U.S., the MAX 9 with that door plug design is flown exclusively by Alaska and United. Between them, some 170 aircraft remain grounded, causing delays and cancellations, of course, in the name of inspections and safety. One of our KGW producers is among those passengers who had their travel plans delayed.
But ultimately, I'd say it's better to do just extra safety checks just so it doesn't happen again. As annoying as it might be, but it's way better knowing that, okay, they're doing these safety checks, so I can at least go on the flight knowing that they double checked these types of things prior.
Alaska said yesterday that they hope to have their 65 MAX 9s inspected and be able to return to normal operations by the middle of the week. We'll keep you posted on that. Stay with KGW as we continue to track the latest on the investigation into Alaska 1282. Updates as we get them at kgw.com and on KGW+. All right, we said it was going to be a busy night because we're also following a rare blizzard warning beginning early tomorrow morning in the Cascades. This is going to be the heaviest amount of snow we have seen so far this winter. Traction tires or chains will be required to head over the mountain passes. Today we saw people pulling over along Highway 26 to put them on.
This is going to be some heavy weather expected, not just on Mount Hood, but also in the Columbia River Gorge. We're also preparing for a lot of very difficult conditions in the gorge.
A reminder from ODOT, be prepared, carry extra supplies, gas up, check your route before you head out. And when it comes to the Cascades, staying put will likely be your best bet with the next 24 to 48 hours here, really touch and go. So let's get right to Chief Meteorologist Matt Zaffino tracking this storm. Matt.
Hey, David. Yeah, we had a bit of a warm up in the Cascades today. It started raining at Government Camp. Timberline got up to 32, but it's 32 right now. The warming has really stopped and the snow is flying yet again. Since Friday, there's been 39 inches of new snow at Timberline. So think about that. That's over 3 feet of new snow. We'll double that amount as we go through the week. It's really quite impressive. Down at Government Camp, it's still 38 degrees there, so still above freezing at Govey at about 4,000 feet or so. But look at Santiago Pass, 33 degrees. Snow is in the air there. And down at Willamette Pass, snow also in the air, even though it's just slightly above freezing. So the blizzard warning commences tomorrow morning, continues until Wednesday afternoon. And then for lower elevations between 1,500 and 3,000 feet, the winter storm warning only because the snow won't be as heavy and the winds won't be as strong. But you know where the winds are strong tonight? Kind of everywhere, especially at the coast. Gusting to 26 right now at Newport. We've had higher gusts, 35 to 40 miles an hour, and we're getting good gusts in the valley too. The rain is really beginning to take, well, it has taken over, and some of it's heavy in the I-5 corridor and out in the coast range too. So the rain picking up right now, and the wind is picking up as well. Here are the current winds as we see them, not the gusts, but the sustained winds. 30 at Newport, 22 at Tillamook, 20 miles an hour at Salem, Portland, and McMinnville. So we've lost the east wind. The south wind has kicked in. There's a gust of 47 miles an hour already at Astoria tonight, nearly 40 miles an hour at Newport. So yes, strong gusty winds. Cold front's going to come through about 1 a.m. 2 a.m. right in there. That moves through, but strong gusty west winds continue. Then watch what happens tomorrow night. This is interesting. We go from showers tomorrow during the day to suddenly the models show us a little bit of snow over the Portland area about this time tomorrow night. I'll explain why that is the case, what our chances are of seeing snow tomorrow night, and then potentially even more snow and dangerously freezing rain Friday night and into Saturday. David, all that in a bit. Back to you.
Yeah, just getting started. Thank you, Matt. Speaking of the winds, we're keeping a close eye on power outages. PGE already reporting 3,400 or so customers without power, with 2,400 in the Kaiser area. It's unclear if that's wind or weather related, but it looks like power was knocked out sometime within the last hour. New tonight, a wanted suspect that caused neighbors in southeast Portland to shelter in place has finally been caught. U.S. Marshals tried to arrest Zachary Drasner just before 5 tonight near southeast 166th Avenue and Hague Drive in the Centennial neighborhood. But they say he ran off. That is when Portland police came to help widen that search. After about 4 hours, they found Drasner hiding in a shed. It's not clear exactly what the marshals were trying to arrest him for, but court records show he's been charged with several counts that include theft, reckless driving, and eluding police. And law enforcement is asking for the public's help identifying the last unknown victim of the happy face killer, identified as Keith Hunter Jesperson. Now, Jesperson described the victim as a woman with shaggy blonde hair who went by the name Claudia. He confessed to killing her and 7 other women between 1990 and 95 in 6 states, including Washington and Oregon. Jesperson was dubbed the happy face killer for drawing smiley faces on letters he sent to the media and police. You're watching KGW News, and straight ahead at 11 on this Monday night, falling short of a national championship, the tough night for the Washington Huskies. Plus, diversity through business, the new boutique that's showing how mighty small shops can grow.